The competition for cloud gaming is heating up, ladies and gentlemen. More and more companies are jumping on board the cloud train. They all want in on what they believe to be the future of gaming. And while some companies are doing a better job than others, there are some companies like Stadia who are treating cloud gaming as the only way to play games, and then there are others like xCloud who are actually treating cloud as a companion to local hardware gaming. And then you've got PlayStation doing their own thing with PlayStation Now. Amazon is trying to get in on it with their own game streaming service. But one cloud gaming service that's gone under the radar is NVidia's endeavor called GeForce Now, which I'd like to talk to you about. It went out of beta, I believe today or yesterday. I think it was yesterday on February 4th. And it is a pretty compelling proposition, especially compared to Stadia. I think it in large part renders a service like Stadia moot because it has a better business model. And the way it works is a bit of a different take on cloud gaming that might appeal to those who are a fan of local gaming, of having the ownership. So here's an article from news outlet The Verge that I think best conveys the information, best compiles the information surrounding GeForce Now. The headline reads, NVIDIA's GeForce Now is finally out of beta, challenges Google Stadia at just $5 a month. And what does that $5 a month get you? Well, here is an excerpt worth highlighting. It's your existing library of PC games that you can now play anywhere instead of having to buy new games and or subscribe to a Netflix-like catalog. NVIDIA supports Steam, the Epic Games Store, Battle.net, and Uplay, and it runs instances of each for you in the cloud. You can log into your accounts, download many of your pre-existing purchases near instantly to your cloud desktop, sync your old save games, and pick up where you left off in a couple of minutes at most. No patches necessary. So unlike Stadia, which forces you to purchase each game individually at full price in an isolated ecosystem that doesn't allow you to play games locally or anything of the sort, this service just takes what you already have, the games that you already own on Steam, Epic, Uplay, Battle.net, whatever it is, and then just allows you to take that into the cloud, and that gives you the option of local gaming or cloud gaming. And I tried this myself, and yeah, it's as it describes, it is sort of its own sort of virtual desktop environment where you log into Steam and then it downloads the game instantly. I tried playing Divinity Original Sin 2, and I had to install it first on that remote desktop from my Steam account, but it happened immediately as soon as I hit install. And then booting the game up took a bit. It took a minute or two, but once I was in, the game played really well. Another game I tried out was Dishonored 2, something that was more, reflex-based, and that game ran pretty decently as well. It had some of the flaws of streaming, some artifacting, occasional stutters here and there, and the like. But the game, latency-wise, wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. It was, I think, better. It felt better than Stadia from where I was sitting. Just the fact that I didn't have to start from the beginning, that I could just boot up the save files that I have stored on Steam Cloud and then transfer that over to GeForce Now and just continue my play sessions from there with the high-fidelity graphics that are offered by the PC version of those titles. I mean, I was kind of impressed by what this offers, and once the internet infrastructure of the world is in place where cloud gaming is viable, because I still think cloud gaming is a generation too early, but once we get to that point, I think GeForce Now could be a legitimate competitor. The article continues, it is my favorite cloud gaming service because I can keep playing the games I've already been playing on my gaming PC, on a weak Windows laptop, MacBook, Shield TV set-top, or Android phone instead. Keep in mind that NVIDIA has its own servers where they host these remote desktop environments with powerful hardware, and that's where all your PC games are downloaded to and then streamed back to whatever device you're using. So hardware-wise, you're going to be set. You're not streaming from the local hardware that you have. So even if you have relatively weak PCs around you, because things are happening on NVIDIA servers, but using your save files and accounts that you already have with the games that are already on there, the hardware is already taken care of, and then the software is all just a matter of what you already have. It just feels like a well thought out model that uses cloud as an extension of local gaming, as a companion to it, rather than have cloud compete with local hardware gaming. It's an environment where the two work together to give the customer as much choice as possible in how they want to play these games. Now, the Verge's article does make mention of the internet connection requirements, which is par for the course with any cloud streaming service. So at least 15 megabits per second, but preferably 30 to get 1080 60 FPS. Now, there is no 4K option for GeForce Now, so that's one drawback from Stadia, but unlike Stadia, it's not charging monthly for 4K 60 FPS, and unlike Stadia, it is not falsely advertising, referring, of course, to the fact that Stadia games, not all of them, run at 4K 60. A lot of the major, big, graphically intensive games, in fact, do not run at 4K. But yeah, with GeForce Now, you are stuck with 1080p 60 frames per second. For now, I'm sure they're eventually going to upgrade the service to support 4K. But, you know, they're not misadvertising, they're not charging for 4K, they're not doing anything of the sort. Another drawback that the article highlighted is the fact that NVidia has to support the games that you own on Steam or Epic or Uplay or whatever accounts you have in order to be able to utilize this cloud service. So for example, a game like Grand Theft Auto 5, as highlighted by The Verge here, even if you do have that in your current library, because NVIDIA's GeForce Now doesn't support that yet, you cannot run that game in the cloud. So there is a select list right now of games that are supported by this cloud gaming service, and it has to match up with your library. Fortunately, a lot of the major big games are supported currently, but there are also many that are not, including Grand Theft Auto 5, Monster Hunter World, or Red Dead Redemption 2, which are among the top played Steam games right now. So that is going to take a bit of time to grow and develop, but GeForce Now definitely has way more games right now that are supported than Stadia does with its meager, 26 games or whatever it is. To be more specific, according to the Verge article, over 1,000 games are currently supported on NVIDIA GeForce Now, so chances are that most games you have in your library will be compatible. And then another limitation highlighted here is the fact that GeForce Now allows you to play for only a certain amount of hours before you're booted out. So if you have the free version of GeForce Now, yes, there is a free version. You can do 1-hour sessions for your games, but the people who tried the beta, they have said that if you just boot out of your game and then come back in, you can just restart that session. And so as long as you're keeping track of that stuff, you can play indefinitely. So it's 1-hour sessions at a time for free users. For founders, I believe that's an extended thing. It reads right here, you can't play whenever you want for as long as you'd necessarily like. You can play an hour at a time for free, but you might have to sit on a wait list. If you're paying $5 a month for the Founders Plan, you get priority access and can play for 6 hours at a stretch. That seems like more than plenty to me, and NVIDIA will alert you well in advance so you can wrap up a session, but it's something to keep in mind. Even with the 6-hour limitation, if you just drop out and then head back in, that timer gets reset. So it's a bizarre little sort of artificial limitation that you can kind of get past, with a caveat for free users being that if you get booted out after a 1-hour session, you might have to queue up. Whereas people who do pay $5 a month, they're going to get priority access so they can continuously do cloud gaming. But it is nice to have that free option for those who just want to test the service out, or for those who don't mind sort of heading back out and coming back into a game 1 hour at a time. And then as far as pricing goes, you can see that it's far more reasonable than Stadia's current offering. For those who just want to do quick short sessions of cloud, you can just stick to the free version at $0 a month and engage in 1-hour sessions that you can continuously restart anyway. And then if you really want to delve into cloud gaming with GeForce Now, there's a Founders Edition that's $5 a month and gives you priority access, extended sessions, RTX, and there's also a free 90-day introductory period, which I'm currently engaged in. The fact that you get that free 90-day introductory period is a big deal. Stadia doesn't have a free trial right now or anything of the sort. And the fact that the service itself is, $5 a month, which I think is pretty reasonable, that helps a lot. And unlike with Stadia, you don't have to pay $130 to gain access to a Founders Edition or anything of the sort. You're not paying for individual games, just the ones that you already own or plan to purchase in the future, which you'll be able to play on your local hardware on top of GeForce Now. So there's just, the value is actually there. The service is actually very useful, and it's a complementary thing to the stuff you already have instead of its own sort of isolated environment that gives you a worse experience than what you already have. And the reception surrounding this so far has been a lot more positive than Stadia. So The Verge said right here that it's their favorite cloud gaming service. And then there is another article here from Android Central. And NVIDIA is not blowing smoke up our you-know-whats either. I am part of the 300,000 people who use the beta, and I can tell you that besides any internet lag spikes that can happen with any multiplayer game, yes, GeForce Now lets you play multiplayer with your existing friend list. It's a pretty amazing service. So the fact that your existing friends list carries through with GeForce Now is a very big deal, especially when you consider that Stadia right now, not a lot of people bought into the service. The player base right now, the user base is really low, so games like Destiny 2 feel super empty. With GeForce Now though, you're just playing with PC players, the people who use the same platforms, existing platforms that you're using, Steam, Epic, Uplay. And so the player base is just there. You know, you're not in your own isolated bubble. You are playing with everyone else. And that's a big plus. Moving on, the article says, besides the frame rate, which is locked at 60 FPS through GeForce Now, games I own and play locally aren't really any better than they are through the service. There is none of that weird upscaling that Google seems to be doing with Stadia, none of the connection wonk, just an awesome way to use gigabytes of data streaming high-end games on less than stellar hardware. Here's another verdict from news outlet Tech Radar. NVIDIA GeForce Now is the best game streaming service around right now, but only because its competition is so weak. Performance is passable and the UI is messy, but the vast library and the more affordable pricing tiers make it much more appealing. And then here we have an article from news outlet Ars Technica, whose headline reads, RIP Stadia, NVIDIA's newly launched cloud gaming service is mostly a stunner. And then if we scroll down, here's a verdict when it comes to performance from the experience of this editor, who said as of press time, GeForce Now only has a few apples-to-apples comparisons, the current Project X Cloud closed beta on smartphones and Google Stadia's Founders Edition on desktops. I can load nearly identical scenarios in these two comparisons, and against both of these, GeForce Now has the overall lead. I tried a bit of GeForce Now myself, and yeah, I mostly agree with the general sentiment surrounding this service. It's just very convenient, it isn't priced ridiculously, and it is just an addition, not a separate thing that tries to pull me away from what I already like to do, gaming on local hardware. And it's something that I might actually adopt down the line once the streaming technology improves. So yeah, this is what you need to know about NVIDIA's GeForce Now, which has been in beta for some time, but I've only heard about it recently because of the fact that it went out of beta, and given the positive impression surrounding this cloud gaming service that actually makes sense both on a business and service level. So yeah, based on everything you're hearing here, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the potential of GeForce Now and how you think it'll fare compared to Stadia. Drop a comment below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.